The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Good morning and welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen on a special day and a special time. I'm Shannon Penrod, and as you can see, I have the fabulous, the wonderful, the amazing Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh right there to the left or right, depending on where you're watching of me. So normally, as you guys know, we do this on Tuesday mornings now, but we needed to do this at a special time and place, and so we did, and we're so thrilled that we still get to have her this week. So hopefully you guys will start to write into the chat with some of the questions that you have, because for the next hour, Dr. Doreen is going to answer your questions in real time. We are live today. It is the 15th of June, 2022. For those of you who are keeping track, Poppy, we're saying good morning to you. Again, we're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and about a dozen other places. Traven will start to show those to you on the screen. And remember that this show podcasts later on today to all of your favorite platforms that you like to download podcasts. Any place where you can download it free, that is where we are. But one programming note, previously, when you would go to iTunes, when you were downloading the podcast, you had the choice to download video or audio. Right now, you only have the choice to download audio. So far, that's been working for us, and we haven't heard anybody grouse. So we're continuing on with that, but please let us know if that's a problem for you. What we want to encourage you to do, YouTube has expanded its platform. You can even go to YouTube on your smart TV and watch Autism Live. So if you want to watch the video podcast, we encourage you to go to YouTube, where you can find a 10+ year library of videos there to answer all of your questions, not the least of which is a library of videos from this fantastic expert that I have next to me. Good morning, Dr. Granpeesheh.
Good morning, Shannon. Thank you so much. And it's lovely to be here, although we're still not in the same studio, but I'm very happy that, one of the positive things about COVID was that we learned how to do this. So now wherever I am, I can always get on the show, which is lovely. And good morning, Amanda with the blue hearts.
Yes, we love it when Amanda shows up with her blue hearts. I do want to say, if you guys are unfamiliar with Dr. Granpeesheh, if it's possible that you've never seen this program or heard her speak before, I'm so glad that you're here with us this morning, because she won't tell you, but she is a true expert in this field of autism. She's been working in this field for more than 40 years. I always say that, and people go 14. She has 14 and no, 40 plus years experience, working with all kinds of individuals on the spectrum, from very young babies, even up through senior citizens. And I always like to remind all of you that she's been the visionary who's seen around corners, who always was about our topic this week. We always have a topic of the week that's sort of overreaching, Dr. Granpeesheh. And our topic this week is seeing whole individuals, which you led the charge on this and said, let's not lump all these young people into one category. They're individuals. They have individual needs. They have individual biomedical needs, individual behavioral needs, individual needs that the family has and the culture that the family brings to it, plus the siblings. You always were advocating for the whole individual, the whole family. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Yeah, and it's a wonderful topic that you are still supporting, I guess, and presenting, because I can't believe that even though I've been in the field for like 44 years, the same stuff comes up. It's the same issues. It's unbelievable that, you go to an ABA provider, and everybody knows that I'm a big supporter of really high quality ABA, but there are many ABA providers who don't either understand and or encourage any of the medical interventions. So that's a little scary, because they are our primary providers of services. And I always, when I was at CARD, I would teach everyone all of the issues with biomedical. Having me, Shannon, or is it okay? Because I'm these signs that say.
No, you're breaking up a little bit, but we're getting the gist of it. That you were somebody who always taught this to the people that you worked with, that they need to listen, and they need to listen and see the whole individual. I just have so much respect for that. You know, you and I both have the opportunity now to sometimes be speaking to people who provide services, whether it's ABA or OTs or whatever. And I want to say it was like about a year ago, it was during COVID, that I was meeting with a group of therapists that the company had asked me to come in and speak. And I said, nothing is off the table, ask any question. And this one very brave young man raised his hand and he said, you know, I'm trying to talk to this mom about her child's behavior. And all she wanted to talk about was diet, which is just crazy to think that if they stop feeding their kid bread, that he's somehow miraculously going to behave differently. And he goes, so what can I say to her to get her off of that kick? And I said to him, I said, bless your heart. I absolutely love you. And I love the fervor with which you asked this question. I'm going to give you a hug and explain to you how you need to get on her page.
Yeah.
And it was like I'd slapped him. He really wasn't too sure. But, you know, the example that I gave him, I said, you know, okay, you're an adult who's incredibly well-spoken and wonderful. If I sat you down right now and I fed you, you know, a bunch of sugar, and then I gave you some scotch, and then I asked you to do your job, how well would you do? And he said, well, I would be messed up. And I said, so what you're telling me is that you know that what you ingest can have a bearing on how well you can take in information. And he went, oh, okay, I think I got it. You know what I mean? But he was so entrenched in the idea that as a behaviorist, that food had nothing to do with anything. And bless his heart, I mean, I think he's probably somebody who wants to be very good at what he does. But, you know, we try to expand people's minds a little bit.
Well, that's the whole point, right? I mean, like, you know, a good behavior therapist who's asking questions and trying to learn, that's wonderful. And that's just the beginning of their career. But it is the responsibility of those BCBAs to learn this stuff. So one of the things I'm very proud of is that I was able to get the Association for Behavior Analysis, ABAI, to have a speaker every year at their major conference who focused on biomedical issues. And that, I think, is wonderful. I mean, it's going to take a little while for it to build up, I think. But so far, we've had Dr. Richard Fry, who's incredible, and Dr. Jim Adams this year, who was amazing. And I think that gradually over time, people will begin to, that we'll be building that bridge.
Well, that's an amazing bridge that you have built. So thank you for that. We are taking questions. I'm going to get to one in just a second that was written in to us this week. But I want to start because Adventures with Shaden, I hope I said your child's name right, says our little girl was diagnosed in 2011. She was nonverbal severe. We put her on medication in GFSFCF. And within 3 days, she had eye contact and started improving. It's been a long road. She's verbal and thriving today. I love hearing that because it goes right to the heart of what we're talking about. Of course, though, I do want to say and have you speak about, Dr. Granpeesheh, that you know, sometimes when you get the right diet, when you get the right biomedical intervention with a child, you can see pretty miraculous things that happen. But I find that sometimes families get so entrenched in that they let everything else go. They go, okay, we're going to get there just with diet. And I think it was you that said to me at one point, well, if diet and biochemically what's happening with the child is preventing them from learning, when we fix that, they can now learn, but we still need to teach them.
Absolutely. I mean, I always say that it is lots of different parts to this, right? So the first part is getting all of the biochemical stuff under control, because while, as you explained to that young man, while you are not, while you've ingested things that you are either allergic to or not able to digest or are causing mischief one way or another, you're not able to learn. You're not open to learning, right? You're a little foggy maybe, or you're hyperactive or distracted or all these other things. So getting the diet, the biomedical, other, just working on the various biomedical factors is step one, I think. And then also not to forget things that hopefully will adjust and improve once you fix the biomedical. The next thing I'm always looking at is sleep. For me, sleep is incredibly important, right? So like I want to make sure all of my kids are sleeping well. If I have the medical issues stabilized and my child is sleeping well, then the next thing I'm looking at is sensory input. And it's kind of like, how is this child functioning in the world? How are they taking in information? It's funny, yesterday I was having a conversation with someone on a flight, and they were saying that they have continual tinnitus, right, which is ringing in the ears.
Yeah.
And this gentleman was very interested in autism. He had a nephew with autism, and we got to talking, and it just appeared to we both kind of came to the conclusion that we have to pay so much attention to the sensory input of our kids, because imagine if you have ringing in your ears, for instance, the whole time, how are you going to focus on anything else, right? And I know from one of my former children, who's an adult now, that there is a difference in how they receive information. So like he told me he had a very hard time focusing on language, on speech. That sound was a background noise because there was another sound that was always present, right? And tinnitus is not a external stimulus, right? It's your brain doing that.
Yeah.
And so it would be very likely for our kids that there are other extrinsic factors that are interfering with their sensory input. So it could be something auditory, which obviously then has to do with the learning of language. Could be something visual, which also has to do with all aspects of nonverbal communication and social behavior, right? That's like we talk about why our children don't have eye contact, or why they have a hard time learning something when it's not presented in a visual format, like words or something. So the thing that becomes important after you have the biomedical and sleep under control, I think, is figuring out, how does this individual learn? Like, what is their best method of learning? We all have different methods, right, Shannon? I mean, for me, I am a visual learner. I like to have things written down. It will always help me if I have a written something as opposed to auditory. So that's important. And then ABA comes in and is a fantastic technique for teaching, because it breaks everything down into smaller steps that are cohesive and that are in the right order. And it's a fantastic teaching technique. And so then it becomes really important to do that. And while you're doing ABA, I don't want to forget that one of the most important things on an ongoing basis is just the mood and kind of mental capacity of the child. You want to make sure the child is happy and not anxious, because so many of our kids or adults start to experience anxiety, and that then kind of conflicts with everything else as well.
Thank you for saying that, because I think it's super important. And I love that the mom wrote back in, and I had a feeling that she was this kind of a mom, but she said, we did ABA, speech, OT, social groups, and special education, homeschooling now. We have to remember that every person is unique and has their own unique needs and challenges. What works for one and may not work for others. Thank you, ladies, for educating. But I think that it's that kind of approach, that because if you go through, it's all the things that you were talking about that this parent took, and they're having good results. She says it's been a long journey, but they're
Yes.
having good results. Amanda also said that they're now working on acquiring skills that were missing during that period of time when your child was struggling with whatever they're struggling. They are going to miss learning some skills, and you can catch up on those things. Amanda also reports that sleep is so much better now, and that has made it so much easier getting school done and getting to school every morning now, which is absolutely, amen. We're so happy to hear that. I kind of want to pivot to one of the most devastating questions we've ever gotten here at Autism Live and Ask Dr. Doreen. And I'm emotional even thinking about it. So I need everybody to fasten your seatbelts because we've got the expert here to talk with us about this. But this is, one of the toughest things. Somebody wrote in anonymously. Sometimes when I punish my child, he fails to understand that he is being punished unless I do serious damage. This makes me nuts and I start feeling suicidal. What should I do? There's a lot there to unpack. I'm so grateful that we have Dr. Granpeesheh here. I'm giving us all a hug.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we have the ability to talk about this. So where do you want to start?
Well, first of all, if you are listening to this show, or if you should see this show, no matter when it is, please contact me, contact Shannon, contact a professional, someone who can help you and someone who can intervene, because we don't want harm to your child, and we don't want harm to you. And I know sometimes it feels just hopeless. But it is not hopeless. It's so simple. You only need a little bit of help. And I will say that, every parent has at some point in their parenting felt overwhelmed and just, I'm going to lose it. I can't handle this. This is just too much for me. But you need to have help, because punishment just does not work. It just will not work. What it does is it will teach your child fear. And when your child learns fear, they will go through life with a million other problems and issues. It is frustrating sometimes when our kids don't understand what we're trying to get across. It absolutely is. But this is exactly what I was talking about earlier, Shannon, is that ABA has a way to break things down and help the child comprehend. More than anything else, sometimes I think, Shannon, that one of the beautiful aspects of ABA is the support that it provides to the family, right? Because when you're doing a comprehensive ABA program, you have a bunch of people coming in and helping you with your child and explaining things, explaining how to communicate, explaining how to interact, explaining how to break things.
I don't know whether we've lost her or me, but she's frozen in one of the most critical moments where we wanted to talk to her. We're going to get her back one way or the other, but I'm just giving us all a hug. And I know I see all of you writing in and talking about things that you do that help you when you're overwhelmed, which I love. Please write in, because I think we've got her back now. Sorry about that, Dr. Granpeesheh. I was just acknowledging they're all writing in about things that they do that help them when they're overwhelmed, and I'm asking them please to continue to do that, because I think that's helpful to us as well. But continue with what you were talking about.
Yeah, and I think I see a lot of the comments coming in are saying the same thing, which is, in that moment of frustration, you need to step back. You need someone there who can just take the child and deal with whatever is going on. And you're a human being. Let me just start by reminding you that you are a human being as well. And so you have the right to step back and have a moment of peace and a moment of just taking care of yourself, as does your child. Your child has the right to have someone working with them who's not frustrated. And believe me, as a parent, I know we all get extremely frustrated, but please, 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 the best thing you can do is just get anyone else, anyone. It doesn't have to be a trained professional, just anyone else to come and be there so that you have respite. So you have the moments where you're frustrated, you can just stop and say, I'm not dealing with this. I'm walking away until I'm calm. And that's, there's so many things that you can do to calm down.
Absolutely. There is a chapter in my book that's called When You Feel You Can't Go On. And the reason why there's a chapter there is because there needs to be a chapter there. And there's a quote right now that my publisher has put on everything from the book, from that chapter, that says, I don't think I know a single parent that hasn't, at least for one moment, felt like they couldn't go on. And that doesn't make you a bad parent. That makes you human. That's what the quote is. It doesn't tell you what the next sentence is, which is my favorite sentence in the whole book, that I say to people, but I'm going to ask you to do something really hard. And I know you think I'm going to ask you to suck it up and just do it. That's not what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to do something even harder. Ask for help. And it's hard. And sometimes the first person you ask for help isn't able to give it, and it feels like, see, that didn't work. But you got to ask for help, and you got to keep asking for help until somebody gives it to you. And I think what we learned earlier this year, because there was that very horrible case a couple of months ago of the mom who had 3 kids and reached critical mass, and she took 2 of her kids who were not on the spectrum and dropped them off with a friend, and then took the 3rd child, who was 10 years old, on the spectrum, and left him on the side of the road in the rain with cars going by. And, the thing that was crushing to me was that there was a thought process where she thought to herself, who can I trust 2 of my kids with? And she did not feel like she had anybody that, I'm guessing that she didn't feel like she had anybody that she thought could handle her 3rd kid. I'm saying to everybody within the sound of my voice, find somebody. Find somebody that you trust and drop your kids off with them while you go get yourself right, if that's what you need to do. Or, as Dr. Granpeesheh said, have someone that you trust come into your home so you can take a break. But I think that we have to acknowledge that these kinds of things happen, and it's very common. Can I very quickly say that I certainly felt that way? Otherwise, I wouldn't have included it in my book. That there was a day and a time where my son, and he was little, so I can't even imagine for those of you who have big kids, but he was hitting me in the head, closed fist, punching me in the head. That's how he was communicating with me. And I knew that I was in a very scary, scary place. And I literally came into my ABA provider, which was CARD, and said to them, I need help today, or something bad is going to happen. And to this day, I don't know what it was that, like, it was so big and so horrible, I couldn't even name it. I don't know whether I was going to hurt myself or potentially hit him back. But I knew that I wasn't going to be able to maintain it. Do you know what I'm saying? And I had to be that blunt and say, something terrible is going to happen. I'm not leaving until you help me. And they helped me. And it was hard. And it was, I think, the bravest thing I've ever done, honestly, because I was the most afraid. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if you guys were going to take him away from me. Like, I didn't know. And all of those fears were wrapped up into that ball. But I did get help. And that is not a part of my everyday. And every time I see a parent getting punched in the head, and I see it all too often, my heart breaks, because I remember how I was feeling. And I felt like it was my fault. I felt that I deserved it. I felt that I needed to keep it secret, or people would think that my son was a monster. And I felt that if I said something, that people were going to take my child away and that he would be injured or locked up. Yeah. It's a bad place to be in.
It's just, and on top of that, I think another feeling that a lot of parents tell me is that they feel judged. They feel like people are looking at them and saying, it's your fault that your child is aggressive. You taught him this. And what people don't understand is that the child is frustrated and communicating that way and it's just such a terrible cycle to be in,
Yeah.
which is why I was just saying to this person who wrote in, please just get, there's a number of different things. One is obviously you need the help of someone who can step into that moment. So you need someone available that you can drop your child off with, or that's just for now. And then going forward, what you need is a schedule that allows you to have, an hour a day for yourself, perhaps, and maybe see a therapist, maybe see a psychiatrist, get some medication that will help you be calmer with the situation. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We all have moments of life when the stress is so overwhelming that we need some help. And please do those things. And then once you cannot fix things for your child if you're not okay. So we need to get you to a point where you can handle, because you're steering this ship. So we need to get you to a point where you are feeling good enough to steer the ship.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. Also, like, big hug to you, because it's just so difficult. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I love, I love that Amanda says, if you're in Houston, I'm always here to help. I love that, Amanda. That's just, you have such a big heart. And so many programs out there that people don't know about that can help. There are. And sometimes it's just a matter of hooking up with your local resources. And we're always open here. You can write to me. And what I do sometimes, when somebody writes specifically to me, I'll tell you exactly what I do is I go online, I look at where they live, and I try to find what are the resources for. I don't remember, Traven. Traven says, wasn't that the topic of the week last week? I don't remember what the topic of the week last week was. That's terrible. That's how old I am. But what I do is I will go and beat the bushes for you in your local community to see who is the person who can hook you up with stuff. And then I come back to you with some phone numbers and say, here's what I found out, so that I do that initial legwork, because I think that initial legwork is so frustrating because you find a lot of dead ends, and I'm just a little used to it. And I put pressure on people, and because I know I'm not overwhelmed at the moment, and I'm always overtired, but that's another Oprah. You know what I mean? But because I know, and I've done it before, sometimes I can get to what phone number is the person that you need to call faster. So please take advantage of that. Put me to work as much as I possibly can. You know what my dream is, Dr. Granpeesheh, that at some point that we have a person, a mom or a dad in every single state, like Amanda, who's always willing to help, that knows the lay of the land in their community, and that they're our first phone call, and we go, hey, they're in this part of your state. What are the resources? And that we have this network. And I know that Autism Society of America is a little bit like that they have offices all over the places, but sometimes the office isn't where we need to have it. But sometimes they're a good resource.
Well, I was actually going to suggest Taka, because at some point Taka had a lot of parents all over the country. I'm not sure if they've kept that up, but Taka moms were a fantastic resource.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We should say tacanow.org and search to see if there is a Taka group in your area, tacanow.org. And Amanda, as soon as I said that knows the lay of the land, I knew that you just moved, but I know it's going to be 5 minutes from now, and you will have the lay of the land where you are now. And those who have been through it can skip the unnecessary steps to get to the right help. We're also here to help. We're in SoCal Riverside County. Fabulous. That's good to know. I want to get back to some more questions, though. But please, if you are the person if you are feeling what that person wrote, or you are the person that wrote that, I want to make sure that everybody has my email, which is shannon@autism-live.com. And I am happy to be put to work. That's a great break in my day to go search up resources for somebody else. That's like a vacation for me. Shannon@autism-live.com. Somebody wrote in, and this is pretty broad, but they said medication, yes or no? I mean,
great question. So I am a medication yes person. And that doesn't mean that everyone needs to be a medication yes person. But as you know, when I was a scientist back in my doctoral days, everything that we studied in terms of therapies, there were studies that showed that the result was always improved if you also had some sort of help from medication. So, for example, depression, you can do cognitive behavioral therapy, you can do a variety of different types of therapies. But if you add a antidepressant medication, then the results are tremendously better. ADHD, same thing, et cetera, et cetera. So almost all problems, you have a solution that's a little bit easier and faster to get to when you look at medication. Now, that being said, it's a really important thing because we're dealing with autism, that you differentiate, you really understand what medication does. Medication, separate from supplements, right? Medication reduces the symptoms. It doesn't alter the cause. And that's a really important thing. It's kind of like when you have a headache, you take Tylenol, and the Tylenol will basically disable you from feeling pain. And that's what happens. The thing that's causing the pain is still there. So with autism, I think it becomes really, really important that if you do decide to take medication, you continue to pursue reasons why things are happening anyway to begin with. So I think, like, for instance, anxiety is a good one. Like, a lot of our kids experience anxiety, or they have obsessive compulsive types of behaviors, and they respond tremendously well when they are given a SSRI medication, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor medication. They do incredibly well. A lot of their obsessive needs are kind of reduced pretty significantly. But then over time, it kind of maybe becomes really important to ask, why does this individual experience anxiety? What are some ways I can give them to calm themselves so they don't have anxiety? And so those are some of the things that are very, very important, I think, with medication to realize. Now, the other thing I want to say about it is that I've had the experience with kids over the years of having been a provider for thousands of kids that sometimes kids on the spectrum will have kind of a reverse effect with medications. So like when a medication is supposed to do one thing, it'll do another thing with our kids. So for instance, clonidine is a medication that is very calming and puts you to sleep essentially. And sometimes with our kids, I've had children where clonidine will make them hyperactive. So keep that in mind. Like, our kids are a little bit biochemically different. And so it becomes really, really important to, test things out, go slow, make sure that you're under the care of a physician who's watching over you so that you can do the right thing. Don't listen to other people your child is different from your friend's child. What works for your friend's child may not work for you. These are some things that are super important. And I think those, and also like one of the things you can do, and not always in medicine, but with medicine, you can do like tests that will determine very objectively if the child has improved, because you don't want the improvement to be like a doctor's opinion. There has to be some consensus on the fact that things are actually getting better.
Absolutely. I love that you're talking about using it in conjunction with other things. Just like we were saying about diet before, you would never just do diet and you would never just do medications. I just want to add on to the fire, though, that, you said make sure that you're working with a physician who's going to work with you and make sure that they're reputable. I'm sure you have too, Dr. Granpeesheh, where they just want to prescribe the medicine and say, and that's done. That's the prescription. I gave it to you. Your problem should be over now. They don't want to hear if they're having a reaction to it. They don't want to hear if your child is now drugged to the point where they are not themselves. They don't want to hear, it's interfering with this part of life. So please listen to Dr. Granpeesheh, that be working with someone who's not like that.
Absolutely. And there's also this, everybody, probably you've heard the term placebo effect. And I want to talk about that a little bit because it happens a lot in autism, right? Placebo effect is when you're so hopeful that a medication or something, a treatment, something will work, that even if it doesn't work, you truly see a positive impact. And that happens a lot. I mean, that happened, over the course of my life. I've seen it with so many different things. This gentleman I was talking to yesterday was asking me if hyperbaric oxygen works. And it reminded me of this whole period of time when everyone was doing HBOT therapy. And we did, at great expense, actually, at that time, it was like $2.5–3 million we invested in research studies where we tested the effects of hyperbaric oxygen, and they did not have an effect on the symptoms of autism across hundreds of kids that we tested. But nevertheless, today, people are still doing it. At that point, it was very prevalent and it went down. That's what's called a placebo effect, where there's a strong belief that there's going to be a difference, there's going to be an improvement, a change, and so we keep doing it. But that's also very important because sometimes you will have your child on a medication that's absolutely not doing anything. And the physician will say, let's just keep increasing the dose. And because you as a parent are hopeful, you'll keep going on with it. So it's very hard, and it's important to just try to stay very objective about it.
Yeah, Joyce says, we actually have a medication management physician psychiatrist. Best thing we ever did was order the DNA testing to guide prescribing medications. Very interesting. Okay, I want to get to, go ahead.
Can I just quickly comment on that too? The DNA testing is awesome. I mean, there's testing that can tell you what medications you will do well on, what medications you will not respond to. Problem is that the DNA testing itself has not yet been proven to be very accurate. So just, keep your mind on it as well, Joyce.
Okay, there we go. Somebody wrote in and said, my son is 6 years old and has auditory processing issues. I have to enunciate and break each word for him to hear it correctly. Could it be possible that his articulation could be affected because of this? Lots of background noise, listening and responding becomes even more difficult.
Yes, that's right. What a wonderful observation from a parent. And I got to tell you, yes, absolutely. These are the things that, over the course of 44 years, I learned from our kids. It was just observing exactly these types of things. I remember, I'm going to try to have to pull the details out. So I remember testing a child years ago. Gosh, this would be in the 90s. Where I was giving this early 90s, I was giving this child a test of auditory discrimination because I had noticed that every time, this child had some language, but would inaccurately label objects. So had different, would get things mixed up, which was a very unusual thing. So I did this test, and I'm trying to remember, I think it was one page of the test, it showed, and this was just trying to identify labels, right? So I would say touch, I think it was cow. There was a cow on the page, and there was a picture of a moon on the page and a bunch of other things. And whenever I would say something like touch cow, he would actually touch the picture of the moon. It was the other way around. I realized that he does not hear the ending sound. That's right. I would say moon, and he would touch the picture of the cow because he would hear moo. And he thought I'm saying touch the animal that makes the sound moo. And we discovered that because we also on another section of the same test. It was like, I think it was cab, cash, cat, and he was getting all of those wrong. He just didn't hear the last consonant sound. And so that was very early on. And Shannon, of course, if you remember, there was a whole era of auditory integration training and so on. So you are absolutely right that our kids, there is some literature that shows that they do hear things quite differently. It could be that you can have this test done, which is the test of auditory integration, or you can do an auditory brainstem test, which will actually just tell you what frequencies of sound your child hears or doesn't hear. And that is very, very helpful to identifying exactly what things have to, yeah, you heard my dog here. There's some background noise. I don't know if you can hear it as well, but she hears it and she's like, what is that sound?
Yeah, I don't know what it's coming from, but we do hear it. But that's, I could tell that there was someone there with you, and I should have known that it was an animal. I should have known that.
She's like, what is that sound I hear in the back? See, and that's exactly my point. Like, we hear different things, right? We all hear different things. And so that definitely absolutely affects the learning of words and articulation. There is no question about it. That's why I still have an accent, even though I've been living in the States for so many years. When I learned English, I learned it in England, and then it got mixed up with a million different languages. And so what I learned had a different sound, and that is still what I produce. And so definitely it will affect the articulation of the child, but that's okay, because over time with ABA, with quality speech therapy, those things are overcome.
And I find this all very fascinating because I think we all have our ears tuned to certain things. Like, I love to watch TV programs that come from Scotland or different areas. Like, there's a show called Dairy Girls, which I just find hilarious. And but they have thick accents, and the longer I watch the show, the more my ear gets tuned to it and I can hear it. And it really helps when I have the closed captioning on. And I think all the time about Carly Fleischman, who, she's the young girl that was completely nonverbal. I mean, like, not just nonverbal. They tried everything to find a way to communicate with her, to teach her, and nothing was getting through. She didn't know the alphabet. She didn't have a way of telling you anything. And her parents finally made their peace with it. And I won't say gave up, but they stopped pushing for learning because they believed it wasn't going to happen. She was that level of impacted. And then the rest of the family went away on a vacation when she was 13. And she's the one who famously took the laptop computer away from the caregiver that she had and typed, "Teeth hurt, please help."
Oh my gosh.
This is a young woman.
Crazy.
That nobody knew that she understood what the letter A was. They didn't know that she knew the word please or help. Right. Yeah. And she typed it. And now, of course, Carly has been, if you've not watched when she interviews Channing Tatum, I'm telling you, you've missed it. It's the most fun thing in the world to see her interview Channing Tatum. She still is non-vocal, but she types and answers people's questions. And she writes these things to tell you about what was going on with her. And she says that somewhere in her teen years, with all of the changes that happened with her, probably hormonally, she started, finally, she could, sound was this thing, and she couldn't pick out what it was. She couldn't find the threads. And then when she started puberty, certain sounds, it was like it got dialed in for her, and she started to be able to hear language.
Right.
And comprehend it. And she's had a couple of times that have, where it's been affected for her again, where it's been harder for her to hear sounds. From what I've heard recently, she's doing quite well. But it's fascinating to me, this whole thing. It's almost like it's a radio frequency that they can't quite get on.
or there's another radio frequency sound that is louder that's disrupting this one. That is hard, makes it harder. Like I never forget that, one of my kids used to say that this I could hear, but it was sound of language was background noise. And like other sounds were very, very prevalent. So that's one thing. The other thing is like, to this day, like one of my other children always says that I had to focus on those language sounds. I had to really make myself focus on it. And it just keeps coming back to me now after this conversation I had yesterday with the gentleman who was saying he has continued tinnitus. And I was thinking to myself, like when sometimes with me, if there's like, if I'm at home and I'm watching a TV show and there's like the gardener outside with the blower or something, I'm done. Like interestingly enough, I have to turn on the words, the
closed captioning. Yeah.
Closed captioning, because again, and notice what that is. That's like now going from auditory to visual, because that helps me, because I just can't focus on what's coming at me because of that background noise. It's very interesting. And with autism, we definitely need to do more work in that area.
Well, can I also say that it was mind-blowing to me when skills came out, and I had the opportunity as a parent, that I wish everybody had the opportunity, that I got to delve into each one of the areas and learn very specifically about it so that I could speak intelligently about it on the show. It was like, for me, it was like graduate school, because I was learning. And when I got to the section about phonemic awareness, the teacher in me, because for years when I was teaching in the classroom, sometimes you would have a kiddo that I would be 100% sure that there was just so much more there for the kiddo, but I would hear from the previous teacher, this kid is a behavior problem. This kid is not interested in learning. This kid is, oppositional. And what I would find in the classroom is that, I might give a direction and say, okay, let's put away our books and let's, get ready. Let's line up at the door. Right. And there's the kid who just doesn't do it.
Yeah.
And that kid gets labeled as a problem, and then that goes with them all throughout school. But what I would find is that if you taught, because that kid couldn't hear it. For whatever reason, there was too much going on, that kid couldn't hear it. But if you could say to that kiddo, hey, when you see that everybody else has put their books away, just copy them. Yeah. Then they were totally willing to comply. They just didn't know what to do. And when you're in a place where you miss the direction and you don't know what to do, you feel wrong and you feel bad, and you then misbehave if you're a child. So, when I learned about phonemic awareness and that some of our kids the English language is very difficult, and the fact that there are diphthongs and triphthongs and some of our kids don't know how to decode them, I'm telling you, my head went and I wanted to take that back into the classroom and teach that to every teacher, how to recognize when a kid is not catching the direction, not because they want to misbehave or they're not compliant. They literally could not hear it.
Yeah. And that makes me wonder, Shannon, it's like one of those things I wish I could experiment with, and maybe I will with some of the kids that I still work with. But you know how I told you that I'm really getting interested in virtual reality stuff, because I think that it produces like this environment that is visually a closed environment, so the child is not able to like be distracted and they're focused. So I'm wondering if the same holds true for auditory input, right? And whether or not if we gave instruction or if we gave communication language or whatever through noise canceling headphones, how would that be? How would that help the child focus? And if they had the VR goggles as well as the headphones, would that actually significantly improve their acquisition of new material?
I think you're absolutely on the right track. Some of the things that people have been writing in, they're saying that their kids love accents, that they're terribly interested in accents, and in particular that they love Peppa Pig. Yeah. And that, which because I got a grandniece who's really into Peppa Pig, to the point where they're learning to say words like George and Mama and saying them with a British accent because they're watching it on a TV program.
Yeah, I love that.
I do think that there's something to this. One of the things that we've discovered in the teenagers on the spectrum, is that I wonder if it's because they had so much that they had to overcome auditory when they were kids, that they have a heightened sense of it as teens, because we find that some of the kids, they're more in tune to accents and doing voices for voiceover, that a lot of them are going into voiceover work, and that they have a better ear for accents than kids who are not on the spectrum. My kid is one of those, and we put him in an accent class.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And of course, as you know, a lot of our adolescents also have a better ear for music.
Yes.
You know, so it should be a similar type of situation. I think, I mean, it's unbelievable. I just saw one of those America's Got Talent, and there were these two brothers with autism, and one was playing an instrument and the other one was like singing in different accents, like multiple different voices and accents, and it was shocking. It was unbelievable how good it was.
Yeah, I think we're on to something. Amanda says that her son can play by ear, and we see that there are some individuals on the spectrum, by no means all of them, but that can hear something and then play it on an instrument with absolutely no training for that. My son could never have done that, but what was amazing when he was younger, I don't know that he can do this as much now, but any music that he heard, if he heard it in a movie, like incidental music in the background, he could recognize it and tell you what movie it was from. So when you go to Disneyland, wherever you are, they're playing instrumental music that's from some Disney movie. And we would sit there and you know, for me, I would drown that out. I'd be like dealing with the tickets and whatever. And he would sit there and he would go, Mary Poppins. Amazing, and then something else would happen and he would go, oh, Sword in the Stone. And eventually I said, why are you saying the names of those movies? He goes, oh, that's the music that they're playing. And I would have to listen to it and I would go, how can you even, I'm not even hearing it. Yeah, how can you hear it and remember it from a movie that you haven't seen in 2 years? And it was incidental music, not like the theme song to it. So it's amazing. You know,
and that's another example, Shannon, of how he is like, it's, you know, we've learned to make it background and he's focused on it.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. And if you're focused on that, there's just so much you can be focused on, right? So like you're focused on that. Are you focused on language too? It's very interesting.
Well, and the reason why I say I don't know if he can still do it, because now
he's learned to go the other way around.
Right. Now he's paying attention to the social cues and all the other things. And I don't think he has as much bandwidth to, you know, listen to the music and pick what thing it's from. And when he's watching a movie, he's more interested in what's happening to the characters than listening to the music in the background.
Exactly.
Which is how, you know, and you wonder, okay, so Amanda says we need research on that, Dr. Doreen, about the perception of sound in our kids on the spectrum and accents and whatnot.
That's right.
I want to take a minute to talk about the fact, and we've got time for one more question if somebody has a question that they want to write in. But I want to talk a little bit about when people have questions that you can be writing in during the live show. Of course, you can send me questions, Shannon at autism-live.com. But more and more of you are taking advantage of asking questions of Dr. Doreen on TikTok. Talk to us a little bit about how that works. I still am not TikTok proficient, Dr. Granpeesheh.
Of course. And also, I mean, it's also starting a little bit on Instagram as well, which I love. So on TikTok, you just, I have a show, it's called, or a name, Ask Dr. Doreen on TikTok. And you basically can go in there and just send me a message. And then I will get your question and then I will either respond to you in writing so that you get it, or I will just do a short video responding to you on TikTok and then you'll see it. And the same for Instagram. And we're starting to do a little bit more, or as much as I can, on social media to help with these types of questions. So please feel free. TikTok is a little limiting because I think the maximum right now, I think I can go to about 3 minutes max. but it's a little bit difficult to keep all of your answers short, you know. The other thing is, Shannon, I think I've passed a certain number on TikTok. So one of the things that we could do, and we should talk about doing, is doing live segments on TikTok. And I don't know what the limit is on that. I'll have to learn more, but that's another thing. I have put on a bunch of stuff on there, which has to do with, I did a whole series, I think, on potty training. I did a whole series on what is good ABA. There's like multiple videos because they were just too short. So I put a bunch of stuff on there. And Amanda, yes, we have been on YouTube forever, right? Because it's hosting it keeps all of our videos. So so that's really good. But that being said, I think you might be seeing like new summaries, or I don't know if TikTok is now, YouTube is now like just showing our stuff in a different version, but it's been there for a long time. We're trying to organize it better for our viewers.
Yeah, YouTube has made a lot of changes recently, and I think you're going to see a lot more changes. We've been on YouTube since, I think, day 2.
Yes.
YouTube continues to be one of our greatest partners and resources for us to put more information out in more ways. So we're excited to be partnering with YouTube in a new way, and we hope that you guys will see some changes coming because of those changes that are being done. So I also want to say, because we've only got a couple of minutes here, that we got a couple of new things that are coming up that I don't even know how much. Some of them Dr. Granpeesheh knows, and some of them she may not know. That tomorrow's show, you guys know that for 10 years we've been doing Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, and Nancy's not going anywhere, but Nancy's got a lot of things that she's doing, and so she's going to be doing less here. So she'll still do Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy one Thursday a month. That'll be the first Thursday of the month. And then we're going to be filling in Let's Talk Other Things with other people on those other Thursdays. And so you guys know, if you watched, we did a special Oscar episode where we had Moira Giammatteo. Moira is one of the ladies at TACA that she used to be the head of the mentor program. I think now she's the head of the scholarship program. She was my mentor, my biomedical mentor. Oh my gosh, I still call her when I'm like, oh, this medicine or that medicine, a wealth of knowledge. But she also, like me, likes to watch a lot of television and movies. So when we decided that we were going to do a special Oscar show, we had Moira come in and co-host with me, and you guys responded so much to that. And Moira said to me, oh, Shannon, I would just like to do that all the time. And I said, I would too. So here we are. Once a month, we're going to do Let's Talk Movies with Moira and Shannon. And you know, we're two ponies, parents of neurodiverse individuals. So of course we're going to be talking about it. And when autism comes up, because autism is a running theme through a lot of these things, but we're also going to be reviewing and telling you what we recommend and what we don't recommend, because we're sort of I guess now the people have said we're the Siskel and Ebert of autism parents, because we don't agree on a whole lot. And you get a different point of view, because so many of you have started asking us, in your free time, in your downtime, part of your respite is what you're watching, and that you want to know what's good and not waste your time. And we'll tell you what's bad. And oh, Dr. Granpeesheh, there is some bad, smelly poo-poo stuff out there right now. I just watched something night before last that was so bad I couldn't even write a review of it. It was just as we say.
My favorite.
It was so bad. I'm going to tell you guys, but then tune in tomorrow to find out more. But it's on Netflix. It's that show Interceptor. It was so bad. And at one point, it was so bad we couldn't stop watching it. And my son was watching it, and he said, this is just unrelentingly bad. And I said, how do they get things like this made? I don't even know the leading woman. What has she done before? And then we were like, oh, okay. Apparently she's from Fast and Furious, but she's married to one of the Helmsworth
I see.
The Hulk. That's who she's married to. And they produced it together. That's how they got that movie made. And they're already getting ready to make the sequel. It's so bad. Don't waste your time. Anyway, so let's talk movies with Moira and Shannon. We promise it'll be a laugh. We will give you an update on anything new that's happening at TACA that you'll want to be tuned into. Like we'll give you news about their conferences that are coming up. And, you know, before we've been able to help to give some free tickets for that. So we'll, you know, there will be autism information, but there will also be information about movies. We've got some other guests that are joining us in subsequent weeks to talk about other things, which I will let you guys know. But the other thing I wanted to mention is don't forget that on Saturday night, it is it's the 10th annual Ed Asner Celebrity and Friends Poker Tournament. And Dr. Granpeesheh, I know you are a sponsor this year, and maybe you want to just take 1 second and talk about why you decided you wanted to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I love to support Matt and Nava. They have a wonderful center, the Ed Asner Center, and I think that they provide a lot of service to the community and to people where these services are not available in other places. So I do encourage you, if you have the ability, to go online and donate to their event. If you cannot, then certainly watch the event, because it is a wonderful, wonderful event. And I know, Shannon, you're probably covering it as well. I wish I was in town. I would definitely be there 100%. But and maybe it's good that I'm not in town, because I therefore gave, you know, now I have the ability to give to you, to give away those 10 seats. So hopefully you were able to do that as well.
I did. And there's some very grateful people that are going to be going to the poker tournament. If you were in Los Angeles, I reached out to you. So, and if you did not pick up my call, then there's nothing I can tell you. But there's some amazing parents that are going to be able to go as a result of your generosity. And I want to tell you, if you're not in the LA area, that I want you to know that the online auction is open now. If you go to Ed Asner Family Center, I bought a bed 2 years ago from their auction from Plush Bed, Dr. Doreen, best bed I've ever owned ever. And I got such a good deal on it, and it was a donation to charity. So they have trips. I know you've participated in the auction before. At one of their auctions, my niece, her husband got to go to that Field of Dreams experience. So there's great things on the auction, even if you can't be in LA. But I think, I have to confirm, but I think that we're going to be doing a live feed on that night.
Nice.
And so we'll be there talking with celebrities, and we'll give you more information about that on tomorrow's show. So anyway, we're way past time now. I ran us way over. But Dr. Granpeesheh, I adore you. I'm looking forward to being back in the studio with you, but I love getting to do this with you in this way.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Thank you, everyone. And thanks for bearing with all the background noise. I just now have like the gardener right outside my window in this hotel. But what can you do? It was always lovely to be here.
It's what happens. Anyway, we'll be back tomorrow with Let's Talk Movies with Moira and Shannon. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me, and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.